Hello there. Welcome to another interesting edition of the Podcast for Education, exclusively brought to you by Africa Business Radio. Taking us on the science subject today is Miss Irene, and she'll be treating the topic environmental hazards, soil erosion, and flooding.
Hello learners, welcome to another fun time of learning. My name is Miss Irene. We are learning about environmental hazards, looking at soil erosion and flooding in science for JSS 3. First, we have to establish what is soil erosion. When we are talking about environmental hazard, we are talking about things that impede or affect the environment negatively. Okay, we are looking at things that impede or affect the environment negatively. And today we are talking about soil erosion and flooding. First, we have to define what soil erosion is. Soil erosion is defined as the removal of the top layer of the Earth's surface through the different agents of weathering. Okay, through the different agents of weathering. And soil erosion usually are caused by excessive rainfall. Okay, they are caused by excessive rainfall, and due to excessive rainfall, the top fertile soil is washed away. Okay, the top fertile soil is washed away. Then also, soil erosion is usually caused by human activity, and what we have is different human activity tend to accelerate the disappearance of the protective cover of natural vegetation. An example is most time when areas or large piece of land are cleared for farming purposes, the soil cover is removed. And these soil covers, in form of the grasses, in form of the plants, help preserve the top layer of the soil from wind activity. So when this space is cleared, you have that the surface of the soil is exposed to very, very high wind speed and wind activity, which causes soil erosion. Other human activity that help accelerate the disappearance of the protective covering are also farming activity. Okay, areas that are cleared for building, and sometimes when people movement of people from one area to the other, in terms of vehicular movement, in terms of even walking around, they tend to clear off the surface of the soil, and this also exposes the soil to agents of weathering like rainfall, excessive wind speed. And you also have that overgrazing. Overgrazing leads to the absence of ground vegetation and causes gradual depletion of soil organism and also results in soil erosion. When we have animals, our farm animals, when they graze beyond control, what we have is the vegetation are removed, are completely depleted. And when this vegetation are depleted, you have the organisms that are found in the soil, organisms that help replenish the nutrient of the soil. They tend to migrate and move away from that environment. And in their movement away from the environment, the old or the activities, the biological activities that help hold the soil particles together are lost. And when this is lost, it makes the soil susceptible to easy weathering. And because of this, you have very deep ditches. You have very, very deep ditches resulting from this. And all these are the different ways or the different causes of soil erosion. And another very important thing to note is there are different types of soil erosion. We have different types of soil erosion, and you have different things that causes soil erosion. And one of the reason why you have this erosion is that sometimes you have deep cutting into the soil where you have large gully crevices being cut into the soil by rainfall movement, carrying away the topsoil, carrying away large particles of soil, and it makes the soil very inhabitable, and sometimes you can't even use the soil again. And these are great hazard because sometimes it can tilt the land or change the topography of an area in such a way that the animal and plant life in such an area are greatly affected. Then moving on, we are also going to be looking at flooding. Okay, now we'll be looking at flooding extensively. Now think about what will happen if water continues to flow into a river that its bank is full. Now, this may happen if it starts to rain again and again, and the surface runoff through flow continue in a process called overbank flow. All right, the water will spill over the top of the riverbank, and this water will then flood the surrounding land. Now, what usually happens is when you have water continues to flow, a river has its level, it has its bank, and when the water continues to flow on into the runoff, it overflows the bank, and when this happens, the water floods into the surrounding land. Its bank is majorly where the river is supposed to end, and the edge of the river. And when you have the spilling, it spills into surrounding land, it spills into surrounding villages, surrounding towns, and this land is called the flood plain. So flood occurs when the discharge of a river is too great for its channels to hold. So we have that flood occurs when the discharge of a river is too great for its channel to hold. We know that a river has its life cycle. It starts from the head of the river, goes through its channel, and continue to flow on until it deposits into the large water bodies such as the ocean or the sea. But what usually happens that we have flooding occurs when the large body of water, or when the water flows so much into a river that its channel cannot hold it, that it spills into surrounding area. The water will simply flow over the top of the riverbank, causing flooding. This is a particular problem in the middle course of a river. Like I mentioned, that the river has its course, okay? We have the top of the river, or the head of the river, and then we have the middle course of the river, and then we have it flowing into the large body of water. Because the land is relatively flat, the water can spread long distances, just like a spill drains across a water table. Like now, I want, wherever you are now, just try an experiment. Take a cup of water and pour it on the table. If you observe, you will see that the water spills in different direction, moving in different direction. This is what happens when a river overflows its bank. It begins to spread all around. Now, all these are different things that happen. Now, building on a floodplain, what flooding changes the landscape, sometimes temporary, sometimes permanently. However, flooding can also affect people and community. We have houses that are located in floodplain. Most times in areas, a lot of people build their house along floodplain, and the reason is not far-fetched, because land along floodplain are usually very fertile. They usually have very fertile soil, which are good for agriculture. And because this soil is very rich and very good for agriculture, people tend to migrate. When they are settling, during their migration, they will settle in such an area because the land is very productive. And when they develop, when cities or when communities develop along this floodplain, it's become a risk when the river flows along. Now, living close to navigable river also help trade and commerce. Most of African community, they exchange commerce and economic development between towns, especially around areas that have rivers where you can easily move from one town to the other and exchange goods. A lot of cities, a lot of countries all over the world enjoy great economic boom because of their closeness to a body of water, Today, houses are built on floodplain, and because of the shortage of affordable land for home. Additionally, a river location can be sought after because it affords a householder a very picturesque view. We have so many of that happening in countries all over the world. A lot of people want to build houses along seashores. They want to build houses along river plains, because you have a lot of trees. You have the weather, the surroundings are very conducive. So most of those areas, and also because of the shortage of land, more people are choosing to build houses along river plain. This as potential high risk. Okay, these have great potential high risk because when we build along flood plains, when the river overspills its bank, it spills into our homes and areas. So these are different situations. We've had cities being submerged in water. You've had large cities being submerged in water. Now, heavy rainfall also results in river flooding. As a whole, we have something like in the UK, almost 8,000 houses were flooded in an area that most cities were flooded. And you also have cases being reported even in the United States, in the Indies, in Pakistan, where great monsoon rain submerged whole cities. And when this happen is result because rivers overflows their bank. And when this happen, a lot of damage are caused because the materials and so many things are destroyed. And most times also, flooding also results from when you have a dam in an area, maybe due to the overflow of the river, due to rains, mostly due to heavy rain, you have that the dam overflows its bank, or the dam breaks out, and then the water from the dam spills into towns and surrounding cities, And something about flooding is that there is nothing to stop flood waters. What can just be done is building barriers, creating barriers. If a flood is imminent, the best that can be done are to provide sandbag by the local areas and all to build up waterproof to create and evacuate people that are along such areas. These are the best that can be done to protect against flooding. Now, soil erosion and flooding, they are very strong environmental hazard in that they affect the environment, in that they affect the interrelationship. And there are things that we can do. There are ways we can advocate, even as a young person. There are things that you can do in your community as you're listening, as you're learning about them. You've learned the consequences of them. And there are ways you can encourage people around you to take better options. There are things that you can do to take better options. We already know that soil erosion is caused when large areas are cleared of cover trees, okay? When large areas are cleared of cover trees. So wherever you are in the part of the world, all over the world, I want you to use this opportunity, encourage people around you. When a tree is falling or a tree is cut, plant another one. When a large area is cleared for farmland, try to plant a perennial around so that it creates windbreak for these areas and then reduces the exposure to soil erosion. Also, for flooding, majorly our use of water sometimes tend to affect the amount of water that is available. Try to advocate and encourage people not to build houses along floodplain, and then for even those that are building development around and all, provision should be made for proper channeling of water. In the class that you are, you can create an advocacy with your friends, to encourage your local councils, to encourage and to effect laws. There are laws that are in place already all over the world, but you can create that awareness as a young person, to encourage them to put those laws into effect to reduce the people building in floodplain, and also help them educate people around. Educate your mom, educate your dad, educate your grandparent or your uncles, your aunt, because yes, we know that soil in floodplain are very fertile. So there is that temptation to want to settle around floodplain. And even when you do such, you must protect your the building, and a way we can do that against flooding is creating sandbags. To protect the movement or the devastating effect of flooding. Okay, and also always seek out more information. Share information with everyone that you come across. Any way that we can help make the earth a better place and prevent all this environmental hazard is always encouragement. So till we meet again for another exciting time of learning, do have a wonderful time. Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Podcast for Education. Remember, it is exclusively brought to you by Africa Business Radio. For feedbacks and comments, reach out to us across any of our social media handles on Facebook or Instagram at Africa Business Radio, Twitter at Africa Biz Radio. Listen to this particular episode or any other episode of the Podcast for Education on our podcast channel. Log on to www.africabusinessradio.com to do so. I am Onoja, saying, don't stop learning.